Hi there, and welcome to this conversation with my dear friend Delphine O'Keefe, who is soul oracle and a psychotherapist. And I met Delphine a few years ago. She's French and Irish, based in Ireland, and we have a lot of things in common. And one of them is sacred sites. So today we're going to talk about how sacred sites can be a portal to our purpose. So welcome, Delphine. So happy to have you here.
Thank you, Karina. Good to be here. It's so nice to just give some time to this topic, give a bit of time and space to this very juicy topic.
Yes, and we're going to try not to talk for hours, but we definitely could because we both have a lot of experience actually going to different sacred sites, preparing to go to sacred sites, facing all the fears and the obstacles and everything that comes up as you make the decision to go, prepare to go, and then come home. So it's definitely a journey on so many levels, I feel. I would love for you to share a bit about um, some of your experiences on sacred sites. If there's something that you would love to share about your own journey and the things that you have learned and experienced through them.
Yeah, I mean, where to begin? I mean, firstly, I think it's something that I've been doing or like going on unconsciously for a lot of my life. It's only when I've looked back that I realized, oh, that's what was going on in that particular place. So there's
Yeah.
many different, places I've been all over the world. Um, and it's like I wasn't maybe fully owning that deeper layer of intention. It was there, but it's like I didn't dare admit to myself that I was kind of, longing for an experience or seeking something, and then, embarking on the experience and then coming home and retrieving the gifts and the learning from it. Because
Yeah.
that's a part of it too. Like even just thinking about talking with you today about this, I've had all these memories and downloads and integrations from trips like 4 years ago to Greece, to Delphine, Greece, or to the sacred sites, the Magdalene Caves in Provence, which I'm sure we're going to talk about more.
Yes.
But even when I was in Konya in Turkey in Rumi's like shrine, and I was like, oh yeah, I have actually been to all these incredible places, and I like made that happen. Like I dared to, book the flight, like, go on these journeys, and often on my own, other times with other people. So it's just been a really enriching part of my life, like I found like peak moments, and also sort of, ego trips as well that turned out to like be disappointing to the ego, but gifts to my soul. So there's a lot in the mix there. But yeah, there's many, many different things to retrieve from this, and so many different layers to it all.
Yes. And I feel like it's like the gift that keeps on giving. Like
Yeah.
years later, they're like things because I feel like it it goes so deep, that whole experience and everything around it, like the whole journey to get there, and then what we experience when we're there, and then coming home, that I feel like for years to come after, we keep receiving like waves of wisdom of like, oh, that's what it means,
Yeah.
or like a deepening experience as well. Because I feel like one of the obstacles to actually going, at least for me, has been like it made no sense. And sometimes the
Mhm.
time was really not very practical. But there's something about our souls really kind of pulling us towards these places. And when you say yes, I feel like we say yes to so much more than we realize when we go into it. And then the gifts just kind of keep coming for many years afterwards, and it just kind of, I don't know, it feels like real magic going to
Yeah.
these places.
Yeah, and that's the first initiation, isn't it? That like call to adventure, like hearing the call and daring to answer it, to embark on this journey when it might seem extravagant or ridiculous or, but there's this knowing that you're pulled somewhere, and we're all pulled to different parts of the globe. And included in this conversation is places like, in your back garden or kind of up the road as well,
Yes.
which we can tend to sort of in a way overlook because we want to have those like peak experiences in these really, classic places.
Yeah.
But we're all drawn to different parts of the globe. Like there's some, for me, it's more kind of Middle Eastern, North African places, or the sort of Sufi sites. There's a real Sufi, stream in my soul origins, and not
Mm.
so much say South America, but then maybe at some point in my life that will activate, and there's sort of codes and lessons and learnings and keys to retrieve from that part of the world. But I feel like we're sort of in a way almost like contracted at a soul level, or there's certain things that each of us are here to experience and to have a really personal experience with that. So it
Mm,
doesn't matter what anybody else says about the place. That's why it's been really interesting to exchange with you about the caves in Provence, because we've had, you know, similar but also different experiences, and you were saying it was different every time. So I think
yeah.
in all of this conversation, it just feels really important to highlight that it's your subjective personal experience. Like, what is the, you know, staying really close to the truth of what you're feeling about the whole thing, you know, as you
Mm,
embark, or what you have, like being really authentic or kind of aligned with what you're experiencing when you're there and what's there for you to receive, you know, in these points around the globe. Like, what is it that you're learning or retrieving or integrating, you know, that you then kind of bring back into your life and hopefully implement and apply at some level, or it changes you. Like, something's different when you return from what
mm.
it's.
Yeah, I totally agree. And not getting caught up in like the most exotic or the popular place right now, and not getting caught in like the stories around it. Because I find a lot of these sacred sites also have maybe a religious aspect to them, historical aspects, and at least the ones, I think all the sacred sites I've been to, I felt like layers of different things there. I mean, sure, the original kind of magic and the essence of the place underneath, but also layers of other things, and also painful things, and I don't know, broken things, and a lot of that too. And I find if I get too caught up in like the story about a place, then I forget why I'm there. And usually it's much simpler than if I get caught up in the layers of this historical event, or these
Yeah,
people who were there, or how they practiced, and kind of reclaiming that too, that we're there for our experience that we have in, I guess, authentically with the place. It's like a co-creation, and there has to be reciprocity as well, so like
definitely.
giving and receiving as well, so we're not just like ticking something off a box, right? Been there, done that
Yeah,
kind
bucket list kind of.
of. Yeah.
Yeah,
Selfie.
definitely. But and in a way, like that contrast is part of it. That's kind of a metaphor for life. It's like there's so much conflict and so much distortion and so many patriarchal overlays and so much extraction, and also cultural appropriation. So I'm always, you know, and I look back on certain trips, I'm like, oh, that actually was not okay. Certain ways that I've traveled, or so it's complex, and we're all living in this the world as it is now. But then there's this kind of deep, direct connection with the what's beneath all of these layers,
Mm,
which we can kind of keep remembering and keep bringing into daily life as well. And it's more the realms of soul and what's transpersonal, but bringing it into our lives in a practical way, you know. And I really felt that when I was in actually in Delphi in Greece, in the sacred kind of, you know, oracle temples there, just like the kind of displays of wealth and all the treasuries. So there's this like kind of meandering road of treasuries where all the heads of the different Greek states were like, you know, basically
mm.
showing off their money and, you know, waging war and everything and coming to ask for guidance, you know, military guidance or whatever from the oracles. Not sure if that's how their services were best used, but that was the world at the time.
Yes.
And then, but originally it was a like a site to like for Gaia. It was just worshipping the Mother Earth in the simplest possible way. So the places I was drawn to within the big sanctuary spaces were more the ones connected to like Athena, and I was doubting it the whole way through. I was like, oh, I'm not going to the fancy official place. Why am I drawn to this thing? And I like was clinging to the perfect experience. So it was
Yeah.
the initiation and trusting like what's underneath all of this, and coming back to simplicity, and then finding out that there were simple caves further up the hill where people were still going to ask for guidance, just in a cave, like, or just by a tree, you know, not the big fancy version. Like, there's something about that land and that place that is really, yeah, that really opens you up to your body as a connection to the divine, basically, like as an oracle, as a vessel. And we all have that. It's just we kind of disown it and ask others for that guidance, you know,
The experts.
ask the experts. And that's something I really got from my work with you, Karina, was when you realized that you weren't really down with the whole like channeling for others thing. And you really
Mm.
encouraged me to tune into my own wisdom and guidance. And my ego is like, oh, why won't you just tell me all the magical stuff? You're a much more powerful channel than me. And then I've had to wake up to the fact that that knowing, that gnosis lives within me. So that's
Mm.
such a beautiful reclamation as well, you know, and it's ongoing, definitely.
I love that. And I love the story you just shared too, because I find that often there's the big, fancy, well-known place. And so many times I end up being behind the thing, and then there's like an ancient tree or a rock or a cave or something that you don't really notice. And there I feel often a lot stronger energy. And
Yeah,
also I think when the sacred sites we go to are very visited, because sometimes they're also like historical monuments or in a place that's very touristy. And that
yeah,
means that there's also going to be a lot of like, I don't know if pollution is the right word, but there's going to be a lot of energy as well. And we don't always feel the purity of the place in that
hmm,
way. And sometimes if it's like an energetic place that is very well known, people come and do all sorts of ceremonies. And some of these places aren't very I don't know, nice to connect with when you first go. And sometimes we're being called to maybe offer some kind of healing or support the
yeah,
place in some way or like be a contribution. And sometimes there's something else that needs to happen like around it. So it's rarely just one place, right? I feel like when people a long time ago chose these places or felt called to go, it's usually a bigger area or
yeah.
several parts of it too. And so really listening and, like you said, trusting what you receive, because we're all there to experience something unique. And sometimes it's very different from what we imagined.
Yeah, definitely. And it is part of the bigger ley lines and grid, you know, of the earth, like certain veins of energy running through the earth. And I've definitely experienced that where like you have to practice quite good energetic sovereignty, you know, when you come in. And that's a good initiation as well. And to like you don't want to absorb it all, like the tears and the kind of beseeching in Rumi's shrine. It was like really overwhelming for me as an empath. So I went back, I was lucky enough to stay there a few days. So I went back and had quite different experiences each day and reconnected them with something more kind of
Mm.
clean and clear, like my personal connection,
Yeah.
which we often avoid. So for me, it's a lot about that intimacy of like away from the mind and how am I really responding, as you said, like the reciprocity with this place in a really humble way.
Yeah.
But like that, like in so in Saint Maximin La Sainte Baume in near the Magdalene caves, I was kind of like staying near the big cathedral and primed for like, okay, I'm gonna have an experience here. Let's see. I was aware of my ego kind of, you know, looking for things. So I was like, you know, a little bit smiling at myself. But the church for me or the cathedral was like, meh, like buff, whatever. I wasn't. I've kind of done a lot of, you know, divesting of the Catholic overlay, so I wasn't like turned off by that either. I was just kind of like very neutral. And I know someone from a group I was in who was like, you know, it was in Marseille that she was like brought to her knees weeping at a random statue in a church there. So then I was like, well, where's my experience of being, you know, of like having a really intense experience? So it's just really hilarious to keep seeing that part that's like looking for something from the outside. But my
Yes.
experience came when I finally reached the egg cave, like the grottos, you know, after a big getting lost and a big like warrior experience all the way up on foot from a nearby town. It was like hours there, and then had a whole experience there, and then came back in a very different way. I
Yeah.
was literally lifted back down. I got a lift from someone. So it's just interesting to watch what you're bringing to the experience, the stories, what's looking for healing and you know, release and what's being integrated as you
Mm.
go. For you personally, you know, like each time.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's really hard and like painful. And it's so interesting because, like you said, you see exactly where you're at with certain
Exactly.
things in your life. And
Hmm.
it can be really painful and hard and and funny and absurd. I mean, it's not just like you just float in there and you have your amazing experience and then you float
No.
out. Like, and it's so funny because every time I go, I'm like, I remember in the moment I'm like, oh yeah, shit, this is what it's like. You know, it's
Hmm.
the whole thing before. And I had a really funny experience when I went to the Mary Magdalene caves in Sandbom the first time, because I went with a friend and we were there actually on the summer solstice. And I was supposed to drive, and she didn't have her driver's license. And I'm not a very confident driver. So I checked the route so that I could avoid all the highways. And I was like, okay, I can do this. It was quite a bit of a drive. And then the night before, I realized that I can't. avoid the highways. And the route that I found was actually one that goes through the highways. So I have this moment of like, I can't do this. I have to cancel it. And yeah,
Yeah.
anyway, it was really hard. And then I was like, okay, so I'm gonna connect with Mary Magdalene and ask her if she can like help me out with this because I need some support to move through this because I know I have to go and I can't let something as silly as I don't want to drive on a highway keep me back. So I connected in with her and it was one of like the strongest times I felt her presence where she was like, go for it, you can do this, and like kind of
Mm.
calling me to step into my power and be like, what are you doing, like crying in your bed because you can't drive, like seriously. And then I was like, okay, yeah, you're right, okay, I can do this. And then I mustered up all my courage and I prayed very hard before going, and seriously it was like the smoothest ride ever. It was like so lovely and I wasn't stressed out at all, and we had an amazing day and everything was like so in flow, and I felt her strength and her presence in such a strong way, and it was beautiful, and it was just such
Oh,
a
it's
great
amazing.
like reminder, right, of yeah, in order to move into this you're gonna have to move through, you know, your biggest fears, and it's not
Yeah.
always what you imagine, right?
That's so interesting because everyone has different stuff, you know? So that might not be it for someone else. For me, it was about transport as well, in the sense that I did it so the hard way because I
Mm,
wanted to do it the real way and the original way. So I walked up the way of the kings, but also because I didn't have a car. For various reasons, I didn't rent a car on that trip. I wanted it to be a different pace and a different kind of a trip, but I
yeah.
made it very hard for myself. There's a theme in my life. And that theme was really ready to just like, release. So that was what the whole, it was like a culmination point, that trip to the caves for me, because I saw my patterns in action, but very, very consciously. And I was sort of looking back down on myself, and I saw it like play out sort of one last time in a way.
Yes.
And I'm sure, we work with these things all our lives, but in a big way, it was so hard, and I was kind of lost, and then following these signs and trying to trust my intuition,
Mm,
and the signs had moved, the little paint marks were not corresponding. I encountered people at the beginning who were saying, "Oh, you can do it, you can do it," and I was waiting for signs from the outside, and then other villagers who were like, like classic kind of like, "Whoa, like I wouldn't be doing that," kind of thing, like, that's a bit crazy. Do you want to lift? And I was like, no, no, I can do this. And then it was like on my own, quieter, away from the village. And I realized there were equal people saying you can do it or you can't do it. And I just needed to choose and just like make it my experience, and like I can do this. So I meandered, took ages to get there, and got lost on. I saw the church cave, but then when I was going to the cave of eggs, which really I felt strongly called to, everybody was saying you can't do it. They were like, "Oh no, you don't have the right footwear. There'd been fires recently, so it was a miracle that it was even open." And these like
yeah.
scouts were there warning people, saying, "You can't go this way. You can only do this." And there were official guides like telling me, "Oh yeah, I know where it is, but I'm not going to tell you because you can't go there. Look at your shoes." I was wearing like hiking shoes, but they were being so mean, and they were really like thwarting me. So I had this whole experience of like having to be thwarted on the way
Mm,
up, and I was like, I'm gonna go anyway, like doggedly.
yeah.
And I eventually got there, so I skipped some chapters, but the whole experience really brought me into the sense of like just gratitude for being in a human body, but everything that's hard about that, and
Yeah.
what I need to be supported in my life as someone who is here to be a kind of a vessel for something, bigger than me, but that I really need to respect my human body and be resourced and supported better as well. So I had my whole moments inside the cave. And then on the way back, I basically encountered like this Kundalini yoga teacher from LA who was like, "Oh yeah, I'll give you a ride." I was like, "It can't be this simple." But I was great. I was like, "There you go. The universe is telling me." Like he literally lifted me down off the mountain, all because it would have been like two buses. Night was falling. I was
Mm,
lost. The Google Maps dot was jumping around, and I was like, "Why are you lost again in a forest at nightfall? This is a really familiar thing."
yeah.
But anyway, just to, yeah, basically the way up was really different to the way down, and the lesson was
Mm,
much one in laying my warrior to rest and letting myself be supported in life. Like when we talk about next level conversations, the next level for me was like letting it be smooth. It doesn't have to be hard won. It doesn't all have to be about shadow work. What if it's about, thriving and being well in your body, while doing your work in the world. So there were many synchronicities And yeah, I could go on. I even encountered a woman called Isis on the bus on the way home. Like
What are the
just
chances,
when
right?
I was connecting to, the sort of Magdalene and Nana, Isis, like that
Mm.
lineage, and I was really connecting anyway. And so like little chats I had with people, I was just not even surprised when they would say things like that. I'd be like, of course you're called Isis. Random person in a village in the south of France. Or the decor was all like matching the my brand and like my soul, and everything that I loved was, surrounding me, like roses and stars, and it was so filled with synchronicities. The whole thing felt guided. It really felt guided. I could gush about it for so much longer, but yeah, I'm so glad that I listened and went and had an experience and learned exactly what I needed to learn,
Yeah.
like imprinted. But it's only even talking about it now that I'm pulling those threads together. And as you say, like more will come. It'll the gift that keeps on giving. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love what you said also about like the physical struggle, because I find that it's not just going to be a spiritual experience. It usually is, and lots of magic and like synchronicities, incredible things that happen, but there's
Yeah.
also going to be like a very holistic, multidimensional experience with also lots of emotional stuff, physical things, and kind of bringing everything together to create that kind of real life magic that it also includes all of our human selves too,
Yeah.
which is exciting. I mean, it can be really hard in the moment, but it's really beautiful how it all comes together, and it makes for really profound lessons, right? We really live those
Definitely.
moments deeply, and they leave such an imprint on us. And I feel like every time I've done something like that, that has sometimes in the moment felt impossible, like how am I going to get to this place? Like one of my callings was to go to Australia, like how did I even make that happen? But when you've had that experience, it feels like it opens up for, well, if I did that, I can do anything now, right? And it really opens up for more possibilities that we didn't necessarily consider before. And I feel like we grow in so many ways, and it humbles us and it opens our hearts and it kind of reminds us of what really matters. And it's so beautiful and so worth it. And I feel like once we start on that journey, we just keep going. And that's one message I wanted to share also with anyone watching this. Like, if you feel a call, don't second guess yourself. Don't analyze it too much, because usually it doesn't make sense, like logical
Mm.
sense. But like do it and do what you need to make it happen, and ask for support and make it as like easy as you can, because it's just worth it. I feel like if we don't do those things that are kind of in our hearts, like, are we even alive?
Yeah, like you will get the medicine you need and you'll be changed by it. So that lives on in how you approach things. Like I have a sense memory. I didn't just think about it or look at YouTube videos. I did a good bit of that. But
Yeah.
then like I had my experience of it, and that's changed me. And it continues to kind of, yeah, filter out in different ways. And I really feel like it is humbling. For me, it's like this duality always, big theme in my life of it's equally like humbling and sort of ego annihilating. You like, sort of shave off many layers of
Yeah.
ego and you watch yourself in action, we see your patterns.
Yes.
And it really, for me, opened up a sense of like you're no big deal and you are a big deal. Like, so we're part of something bigger. You're just one person visiting a site that connects you to the bigger picture of the mystery, the bigger mystery of life. And you are important enough to do this. Like you're important enough to say yes and go on it. Like I was kind of like low key, embarrassed to say the word pilgrimage, but that's what it was. Like it was a sacred journey, very intentional, very steeped in ritual. It always
Mm.
is for me. It's like that's how I roll. So it was a reminder of like, yeah, you are actually important and you're multidimensional and you have a magnificent big soul that you experience, one like some aspects of here in this form as
Mm.
Delphine, but you're so much more than this. So it's this really interesting duality of being in human form with all the limitations and then connecting to something so much more vast and limitless and the mystery, which we're all like, those of us who are seekers and pilgrims, like
Mm.
we look for. And the heart is like yearning for this. It's such a
Yeah.
gift to say yes. You retrieve so many, I think a soul level gift. It's not just human learnings and growth. It's like in certain spots on the globe, I feel like wow, I've actually remembered who I am or retrieved things that they're familiar places from past or parallel lives or something is, there's so much that's happened that I can't put words on that I don't know consciously. but it's trusting there's some reason I need to be here. Let's see, staying curious,
Yes.
and going like, yes, I'll open up to the adventure.
Yeah. And it definitely feels like I am meant to be here in this exact moment, and like
Yeah.
confirmation that yes, you're meant to be here. And sometimes it's to meet someone, to do something, like things just start falling into place. And when that magic unfolds, it's just the best feeling ever. And like you said, like it's so multidimensional and there's so much to learn, and it's so rich and it's so vibrant and amazing. And we grow so much from it. I feel like it's, yeah, definitely life changing. So thank you so much for sharing your experiences. It's such a juicy topic. And for anyone who wants to learn more from Delphine and explore, like discover more of your journeys, you're offering something tomorrow. I'd love for you to share a bit more about what it is.
Yeah, so I'm inviting people on a guided journey to the on the inner planes, not literally, to the
Yeah.
temples of Delphi in Mount Parnassus, where I had an experience 4.5 years ago
Mhm.
that really initiated me into bringing through more of who I am in my life and my work. So yeah, I'm gonna basically talk through some of the keys that I retrieved from that experience and how they've shifted things in my life, and invite people to connect with their inner oracle in the experience as well, and to dare to kind of bring their skepticism, bring the I'm not sure, but to kind of create that space to connect to their soul selves, and yeah, and open up to what the like just stay open, see what they bring, because that's
Mm.
something I'm doing more and more. That's I'm going to be running a group, like a mentorship group, that will offer space, a very intimate group, for people to actually do that on a regular basis, like to connect with themselves, retrieve their guidance, apply it in their lives, like implement. The thing for a long time, I took it like not quite seriously. I was like, well, this is fun. All these synchronicities. Wow, take a picture. Sure. But like, what are you doing with that?
Yeah.
Are you living that? It kind of was up here and it didn't quite land for me until more recently that, okay, this is real. Let's bring this through in a way that changes things, and let it inform how I live. Like, as you said, it doesn't make sense, but the more you listen to the calling, the more your life like becomes delicious.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And so we'll leave links as well to your talk tomorrow. And then, of course, go check out Delphine online. She's on Facebook and Instagram to discover her mentoring opportunity as well as soon as that is out. And I'm doing 2 more retreats in person this year. I'm really excited. I did one in Provence last year and it was absolutely magical. Like, I mean, I had a feeling it was going to be exciting and magical and beautiful and fun, but like when you haven't done it before, you don't know what it's going to be like. And I feel like we were so guided and the most incredible women showed up and we co-created something really super special, and it was so great to share that experience and have a whole week to like really dive into it, and also have lots of time for like laughing until you cry, taking naps, writing, being like all the good stuff. So basically, I've created the retreat that I would love to go to. And I'm doing that again, end of May, another week in Provence. So it's a sacred feminine retreat. And then another one called the Sacred Union Retreat that's more about integrating, walking the path of love, integrating also feminine and masculine energies in the southwest of France, closer to Carcassonne. So that's going to be a different type of retreat. I mean, the I guess the core of it is the same, but then different energies, different experiences. Really excited about that. I just went on a road trip not that long ago to find the perfect house, go visit some magical places. And yeah, I'm just really excited. It feels like being able to play and explore and do all the things I love, but for this to be work, because it doesn't really feel like work in that sense. So I feel really blessed. So if anyone feels the call to join us, you're welcome to get in touch or check out the website. And I would love to bring you on an adventure together. I feel like as adults, we don't go on adventures nearly often enough.
Play with magic. As you're talking, Karina, I'm feeling how grounding it is that you're like based in France as well, and with Olivier, and like because when you kind of arrive in, some of it is like, oh my God, I've landed here, and you're a little bit, it's a bit jarring when you arrive into places and you're absorbing all the sensory input. But
Yeah.
when you're kind of a local, there's this really lovely Like you're becoming a bit of an expert. I know you hate that word, but we were joking earlier about like I'm not a tour guide expert. I don't know the facts and figures of all of these sacred sites. Why are we talking about this? You know, that bullshit that we say. But like you kind of are in that sense of the energies of it and offering that grounding to people and tuning into what each group needs every time, which is different. So that
Mm,
the trust that you hold means that people will have their experience, not like a bog standard, like, you know, replay kind of. You really, yeah, you really adapt it in a very genuine way to what people need. You're not afraid to respond. So that feels really grounding. I'm like, oh, I'd love to like hang out in the south of France now for 6 months and like be steeped in the energies there. But then of course
mm,
I'm in Ireland, so why am I not looking in my own backyard as
yes.
well? And I do personally, but maybe we're more, yeah, more expert than we realize in terms of the depth, not the
Yeah, it's
superficial.
interesting that you say that. Thank you. I mean, I have lived in France for 22 years and
Exactly.
I feel like when you come to a country, it's like I think it depends on the country, but I find sometimes France, because it's a bit chaotic and not always very well organized. And for people who don't speak French, it can be a bit of a learning curve. I mean, that can be a fun adventure too, of course, but I feel like sometimes it's nice to just know that you'll be guided and then you can just go have your experience
Yes,
and you know that
exactly.
all the practical stuff is taken care of and it doesn't and you can still have lots of space to experience things yourself and like I loved having like really small groups. I only have like 6 women join, so
Yeah.
we all have space to do our own thing and be at our own rhythm, and then we do things together, but there's like plenty of space for everyone to do and just be on their own if they want to, which I think is really nice because sometimes it's great to share and sometimes it's great to just have space to process. Or we actually do a lot of like learning how to ask for what you need and want. Like, okay,
Oh,
I
I
need
love
this
it.
now, or I need to step away, or I need more of that. So also practicing some of the French stuff, how, how French people are like, I want this, or no, I'm not doing that. So we
Yeah, more direct expressions. Definitely.
yeah. So we also practice that, which I think is really great and such a good, because I feel like whatever we experience in our small circles, right?
Mm.
Both all our offerings is when we feel confident doing it in a safe space, we can then go out in the world and be more maybe assertive or ask more for what we need or want, or like
Uh,
take up more space or all those things. And I feel like it's so important to do that. And it's true that I've been to a lot of these places before and I do have,
yeah,
I guess, experience now. And I love, yeah, I love guiding people to these places because I feel like it's just so magical. And it's fun to have like be with the locals, isn't it? Because that's something I love when I go traveling. If I can, stay with people who are from the country, because they're going to show you stuff that you don't find in the same way, or you don't have access if you don't speak the language, for example. And that's always really fun. It feels a lot more intimate, and you get to know the country in a deeper way as well.
mm. So like people can have their own inner journey, but be held in that as well, and not sort of spend time faffing around with all of the practicalities. So
Yes.
yeah, it's such a like a meta experience of depth as well when you're in a group context. So I love that. It's like layers and layers of learning about yourself and becoming more true to yourself
Mm.
just through being in the group experience. Amazing.
So much goodness. So thank you so much, Delphine, for this great talk.
Yeah,
And thank you
likewise.
everyone watching as well. If you have any questions, if you're listening to the recording and you want to ask us any questions or share any of your experiences, because I know many of you are also exploring this or have been maybe for years, and it's always really exciting and inspiring to learn from each other as well. So please ask questions, share your experiences, and we would love to welcome you into our spaces if you feel called. And thank you so much. We'll continue this conversation, I'm sure, later on.
I look forward to seeing more updates and news about your travels.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, Karina.